Serving four Qing emperors over half a century, Robert Hart's career might complicate how you think about empire. For most of that time, and we're talking in the second half of the 19th century primarily, he was the head of the Imperial Maritime Customs Service, responsible for collecting about 1/3 of the revenue the dynasty had at its disposal during that time. That an Irishman, Hart was born in County Armagh, would be one of the linchpins keeping the dynasty funded and functioning is an uncomfortable point for many, and these include not just the modern Chinese nationalists, but also those who prefer a kind of facile East-West predatory distinction in how imperialism functions. Some of that queasiness traces back to the earliest years, the origins of the institution that he headed. During the Taiping Rebellion, 1850-64, the Qing dynasty was fighting for its life, its existence, in what was probably the greatest civil war, rebellion, revolution of the 19th century. And the government was sometimes in such a shambles it could not even collect the duties it was owed at trading ports. Foreign consuls resident in Shanghai, the greatest port of all, stepped into this vacuum, collecting the dues on behalf of the Qing government before eventually remitting it to them. And remember that the Western powers were major supporters of the Qing regime against its internal enemies. The consuls weren't doing this just out of their own kindness or friendship. On the one hand, they didn't want all these merchants in the port they helped oversee getting away with things, but on the other, their home governments were quite likely to benefit from this revenue collection as the Qing government paid out various forms of indemnities or contracts through these funds. But once they were in the customs collection business, the foreigners, Hart and many others, did such a good job, incorruptible, reliable, modern professional, that the Qing government asked that he and they stay. Over time, the dynasty came to rely on Hart and his professionalism so much they expanded the ambit of his bureaucratic responsibility. You'll see that rivers there in the mirror-flipped characters are included, not just customs on the ocean, and there were many other areas of responsibility besides added to his plate. The depiction here, too, from 1894, I think, is a faithful representation of the way that Hart came to be so closely associated with the dynasty that he served, wearing the robes of an official. Was this weird for an Irishman to be in this role? I don't think so. From its earliest years, and the dynasty lasted from 1644 to 1911, people have analyzed it as a kind of diarchy, that is, often with two officials mutually overseeing each other, one drawn from the Manchus, who were the ruling group in charge, and the other from the majority ethnic Han Chinese. But by the 19th century, we can see that other types of people were already being incorporated, from a diarchy to a kind of synarchy that would include Westerners of various flavors, not to mention Mongols and others. And so, while an Irishman at the heights of China's politics today would be completely unimaginable, it really was true that empire had a more expansive and open vision of who might participate and serve than the narrow view of today's nations.